Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video talking to you about what is, I think, one of the easiest and most effective ways to improve the feel and potentially the performance of your rifle, at least your AR-15 style rifle, and that is going to be upgrading the trigger with a Geissele G2S trigger. Now this here is my SBR. It's a Spikes Tactical Lower with a BCM 11.5 inch upper. I've been running this thing a ton. Originally this lower had a Geissele ssa-e, but eventually that went into my 16-inch BCM rifle, and then I moved this one into the G2S trigger. Since doing that, I've probably run close to 16 to 1800 rounds through this lower, about 1200 of which was in one single class, the American Rifleman class, through Spartan Training Concepts. I'll talk a little bit more about that and kind of how that influenced my opinion of this trigger in a little bit, but first let me go ahead and talk to you a little bit about some of the specifics of this. This is in their more mil-spec line of triggers with the SSA, SSAE, and then this is their G2S. Now the G2S, according to Geissele, is pretty much exactly the same feel as the ssa trigger. However, basically, they changed the manufacturing process to make it a little bit cheaper, and then they called it the G2S, which is Geissele two-stage trigger. So this is a two-stage trigger. Currently, Geissele doesn't have any single-stage triggers out. They are working on one. I shot it at SHOT Show this last January. It feels amazing, and you know that once that comes out, I'm going to definitely do my best to get my hands on one. But in the meantime, we're just talking about these two-stage triggers. Now, right off the bat, I want to tell you about the trigger pull on this specific trigger and talk to you a little bit about the feel. So, on my trigger scale, and I'm going to show you some close-ups of me actually testing it multiple times so you can see the consistency for yourself, but it pulls consistently at 5 pounds on my trigger scale. Now, I know for a lot of people that might sound like a pretty heavy trigger, at least for a AR-15 trigger. However, there are two things to consider, at least in comparison to a standard mil-spec trigger. First of all is the consistency. Like I said, it pulls consistently, i.e. within maybe 5% each time of 5 pounds on my personal mechanical trigger scale. Making sure that your trigger feels exactly the same with each trigger pull really helps translate to consistency when you're shooting at targets at especially longer ranges, when you need to know exactly how that trigger is going to feel and exactly when that trigger is going to break. It really, really helps the shooter. Second of all is the actual feel of it, in addition to the consistency. And actually, before I move on, when I'm talking about consistency also, if you look at your standard mil-spec triggers, I've had mil-spec triggers that can basically vary from about a 1.5 to 2 pound difference from trigger pull to trigger pull, just because of the inconsistencies in the manufacturing process and the coating process, and just them kind of rubbing together. It can really vary, which it makes it very difficult to be consistent and have more precise groups at longer ranges. Not impossible, but it definitely makes it a lot more difficult for the shooter. Moving on to the actual feel of it. So even though it may sound on paper a little bit heavier, it feels very, very crisp. I believe they liken it to snapping a carrot, just that kind of the way that that trigger breaks on that second stage. And I want to kind of show you real quick what that's going to look like. So let me go ahead and unload this thing. So when we're talking about the actual feel of the trigger, hopefully you can see here. I'll try to demonstrate this as best I can, and I'll even do it left-handed so you guys can see. Being a two-stage, you have the first stage where there's going to be a little bit of trigger take up, and then watch the small amount of travel once it actually does break. So, and again, it's a very, very crisp feel. It's not mushy. You know exactly when it's going to break, and it breaks very consistently. So as far as the reset, it's a very short reset. It's a very tactile and audible reset, and then it's a nice short trigger pull again. And again, because of the feel and the consistency of it, even though this is one of their least expensive triggers, it still is a vast improvement over any mil-spec trigger. Now, again, like I said, I've played with the ssa-e. It is probably about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds lighter than this trigger, and I think they liken it to a candy cane style snap. And again, I have a lot of experience with the ssa-e as well. I'll probably be doing a separate video on that here in the near future. However, just in ways of comparison, I can say that the ssa-e feels better. It is lighter. It's a, you know, a little bit more crisp, but it's also considerably more expensive. And I think that's where this thing really shines. So if you're someone who's been looking to upgrade from your mil-spec AR-15 trigger, but you've kind of been intimidated by the price range of a lot of those, you know, nicer triggers like the SSA, ssa-e, or, you know, any of the other Geissele triggers, this is a really good way to get started into the Geissele line of triggers without it totally, you know, blowing your budget. However, I will say it can be a little dangerous to get this trigger, because once you feel a Geissele trigger for the first time, you're going to be hooked, and at that point you're probably going to want to outfit the rest of your guns with Geissele triggers, hence why I own a couple of them in addition to the ALG triggers I own. Now, the feel and the consistency of a trigger mean absolutely nothing if it's not reliable, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to put so many rounds through this trigger before I did the video on it. Now, like I said, I took this through 1,200 rounds of the American Rifleman course through Spartan Training Concepts, and the entire 2 days everything was rainy, muddy, dirty. Guns were failing left and right due to foreign material just getting into the action. I can even show you pictures from when I took this thing apart to clean it after that class. Everything was just caked in mud. Honestly, I don't know how it continued to run, but throughout that entire process, I never once had an issue with the trigger. Now, Geissele also tells you to lubricate the different surfaces on the trigger after every so many rounds, and I've also intentionally not directly lubricated anything in this trigger assembly since I installed it. Now, it does come with some of their proprietary lube, and you know, I used that when I first installed it, but I haven't used any lube directly on it ever since. Now, some could have gotten on it you know, after using it on other parts and it dripping down or whatever, but I haven't directly lubed it, and it's been 100% reliable. Now, I don't know if I'd recommend other people doing that, again, because Geissele does say to lubricate it at regular intervals, but just letting you know, I've intentionally not directly lubricated it, and it's had no issues with functionality whatsoever. One of the other things I want to mention is because of the way the pins actually attach to, you know, the trigger itself and the hammer, I haven't had any issues with the pins walking out at all. I don't know if you can see up close here. They've stayed nice and flush. I've never had one start to walk out and have to push it back in or anything like that. It is a two-piece trigger, so those springs definitely help keep it in place, and then the little detents inside help that as well. So everything is good to go there. Now, it's likely, at least hopefully likely, that throughout this video I've been showing you a lot of footage of me using this trigger. I've used it in a lot of accuracy tests with a bunch of different stuff. Actually, with this specific setup right here, just with a scope on it and a Recce 5 silencer from Griffin Armament, I shot a one-hole group with this thing, no problem. I think it was only 50 yards, but still literally one hole. So it's definitely going to help at least improve the potential for accuracy, again, because of that consistency and that feel. One of the other nice things too when it comes to Geissele triggers is it's very, very common for them to run sales, pretty decent sales on their triggers and other products. Like I think just this last weekend, being 4th of July weekend, they were running like a 20% off sale, and then I know places like Primary Arms and other websites will do like 25% sales on Geissele products. So that's an excellent way to get introduced to Geissele products, again, through this G2S trigger. If you're looking for an exceptionally high quality two-stage trigger that is going to be 100% reliable and feel significantly better than your mil-spec triggers, you know, it's going to be really hard to beat that. Now, again, in comparison to the ssa-e, I would say if you can afford it, go with the ssa-e. You will certainly not regret it. However, if you're still kind of hesitant about it, if you don't have a friend who has one where you can feel it, definitely give the G2S a look. I would really encourage it. Geissele is an awesome company. Bill Geissele himself is a super down-to-earth person. I had the honor of talking to him and meeting him at SHOT Show as well. Really, really awesome guy, which, you know, obviously makes it a lot easier for me to be willing to spend money on quality products such as his triggers. So I'll definitely put links below to both the Geissele website where you can see more of the specifics on this trigger, and I'll also put a link to a video that Bill Geissele did talking about the different triggers that Geissele manufactures and kind of what the application is for each of them. So if you haven't already seen that video, it's a really great in-depth video. Watch that, see what trigger's probably going to fit your application the best. But you know, honestly, I really can't recommend Geissele products enough. So if you want to see more, like I said, I'll be doing a ssa-e review here soon. You know, maybe within the next couple months. I really want to get a bunch more rounds through that. I've been shooting this one significantly more than that other rifle, so I want to get a few hundred rounds through that ssa-e before I do my review on it. But that thing's been running great for me as well, and you're going to be hard pressed to find someone saying anything bad about them. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section below. I try to do my best to you know, stick around these videos as long as I can and answer questions for you guys. If you have any recommendations, definitely throw those in the comments section as well. You know, I always like hearing from you guys and seeing what you think about products, or if you have experience with any of these Geissele triggers, please throw those down there as well. Let other people know, because again, the more people have to reference off of before they make their decisions, the better. So with all that said, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.